Okay, so good morning, everyone. Jodie Simmons from Taking Perspective. Thank you for joining me here this morning. I'm live in my Organisational Secrets for Empowered Women's group. If you have registered for this and were unable to make it, you will certainly get a copy in your email box. And this week we are chatting about what mindfulness is and why it's important. Okay, so what we're going to look at during this webinar is what is mindfulness, difference in practices to achieve mindfulness, and the benefits of mindfulness. And I've also added just a few tips at the end also, just to help those who have never really practiced it before and just to help you get through that. I'm also a registered meditation facilitator. So if this is something that you want to look into on a deeper level, please do send me a private message and we can have a 30-minute free clarity call and see if I can help you. Okay, so what is mindfulness? The first topic of the day. Mindfulness is about living in the now. Or the present, if you'd like to call it that. So when we are mindful, we become really aware of the things around us and quite conscious of what's going on within us. So mindfulness is an internal act of paying attention and just being completely engaged with whatever is happening around us. So extensive research has been done around mindfulness, and they have shown that people who are not actively or who are not deliberately paying attention to something in their own brains, they tend to switch off or they flip into default mode. So what I mean by default mode is that our minds become inundated with things like self-judgment, negative chatter, cynicism, worry, and researchers call this operating in autopilot. So in contrast to the default mode, when we purposely pay attention to things, we activate our senses, and this helps us eliminate certain elements of worry and judgment, self-criticism, all the self-talk that we tend to find ourselves doing. The practice of mindfulness, and it can be challenging in the beginning because it's just something that you're not used to. And, you're creating new neural pathways by just doing something different and experiencing something different. So it can be a little bit challenging in the beginning, but over time, it will definitely help you develop like curiosity and a greater sense of awareness of yourself, those around you, and a level of acceptance of self and those around you also. So mindfulness helps us set up boundaries by revealing what makes us unhappy and what brings us peace. There's a few different ways to practice mindfulness. So first we'll start with how mindfulness works. And the experts believe that mindfulness works in part by helping people accept their experiences. Okay, so these do include painful emotions as well as the happy emotions. But when it comes to our painful emotions, they're the ones that we tend to push under the rug and not deal with. We don't tend to lean into them anywhere near as much as we do our happy emotions, because we can have some quite adverse effects from leaning into our negative emotions. It can be quite raw at times. So it's really about learning to react, instead of reacting to these painful emotions, it's really about just creating an acceptance around them and learning about where they come from. So it's basically something that's quite common is mindfulness meditation. And you do this in a combination of many different ways, and it's done in all sorts of therapy. The development of mindful meditation within therapy, it makes good sense, because ideally, regardless of what sort of therapist you are, our common goal is to help people gain a perspective on a rational and less self-defeating, thoughts and all those sorts of things. So ideally, that is the common goal, regardless of what therapy you do practice. So there is more than one way to practice mindfulness, as I mentioned before, but the goal of mindfulness technique is to achieve a state of being alert. You're focused on the relaxation by deliberately paying attention to those thoughts and the sensations without judging yourself. So no judgment here. This allows your mind to refocus on the present moment. So here is just 3 ideas. So basic mindfulness meditation is the first one. And this is where you just sit quietly and focus on your natural breathing. It also could be a word, a mantra that you repeat silently. So this allows you to come and go without judgment and return your focus on your breath or your mantra. So often you'll find that your mind wanders, especially if you're suffering from anxiety, depression, overthinking, and you've got some of those mental health more issues, you find yourself not being able to focus anywhere near as much. So your mind will begin to wander in the beginning. But the idea of it is to allow that wandering to a degree, because you're actually training yourself to come back to whatever you need to focus on. So it's also a way of allowing you to a degree, make the mistake so that you can learn from it. And by doing that, you're creating that new pathway within your neuroplasticity to be able to just bring yourself back to that breathing, or bring yourself back to that word that you're repeating silently, whatever it is. So a lot of people think that when their mind wanders off that, oh, I can't do this. On the contrary, it's actually a good way of teaching yourself and a good way of learning how to truly focus. And you can take that into every aspect of your life, including, just sitting in the office. If you find your mind wandering or whatever, you're actually able to refocus because you're training your mind to do so. And this helps with that. The next one is body sensations. So notice just subtle body sensations. You might find like an itch or a tingling sensation, and you just have to notice that without judgment and let them pass. It's about noticing what part of your body is in succession from your head to your toes. So ideally, it's really about going through the body parts and going through the motion of just relaxing them. If you feel a certain sensation in a certain area, take notice of that, but then move on from that. It's not about, I suppose, focusing in that place, but it's about acknowledging it and then moving on to the next space. So you might notice things like sights, sounds, smells, tastes, even touches, but it's about really letting go without judgment, just taking pure notice and creating awareness around them. The next one is emotions. So allowing your emotions to be present without judgment. And I spoke a little bit about this before. It's really about practicing a steady and relaxed way of naming your judgments, because often we will feel an emotion first physiologically, and then we will take some point of part action. So just an example is if, say you had anxiety. So first you might feel a tightness in your chest. You might get, you might feel heat in your hands. You might sweat. Some people, they might shake. They might feel sick in the abdomen. And it's really about taking notice about where you're having these physiological changes within your body. And then you sort of take action to a degree. Like if it's anxiety, you might find yourself procrastinating. And after that, you will then go into a place where you will name that feeling, and you will call it anxiety. And from there, you will add another emotion to it, and you will build upon that emotion. And then that might be hurt, It might be anger. It might be that you're irritated about something. It could be sadness, whatever you're feeling anxious about at that time. And we tend to just build on these emotions, and we keep overlapping them with further emotions, because what people don't understand is emotions are felt within the body. And that's why we say, you'll feel it on a physiological level first, and then you will take some sort of action, and then you will name what that physiological feeling is. And this happens within split seconds. So it's not something that, you're sitting down and you're, going through the motions, but it happens really quickly. And it's about being able to practice a steady and relaxed naming of these emotions, whether it be joy, anger, or frustration. And it's about accepting the presence of that emotion, not judging that emotion, and allowing that emotion to let go. Okay. So here we're going to go into more benefits around mindfulness. So we are all in a very busy world, and whether it be you're at home and you're folding your laundry, you're keeping an eye on the kids, another eye on the television, you're planning your day, you're listening to the radio, you're commuting to and from work, you're planning your weekend. But in that rush of accomplishing all these necessary tasks, we find ourselves not actually stopping in that moment. And we find ourselves losing the connection between what we're actually doing and being actually present at that time. So you're actually missing out on what you're doing and how you're feeling about what you're doing. And I know some of these tasks, they may be mundane, but for example, if you are folding the washing and, you've also got one eye on the kids and one eye on the TV, folding your washing can be a mundane task. There's no denying that. But it's all about really just take a moment and really sort of lean into it and just focus on, that could be the vibrancy of the shirt that you're folding. You could, you could really love that color, or you could be just looking at, your favorite pair of pants or whatever it is, and just take a little bit more notice about those little things that you're doing at the time. When you are watching the kids and you're in a hurry to get to work and, you've got to get the kids off to school. Sometimes it's really about just getting up just that little bit earlier so that you're not so rushed, so that maybe you can sit at the kitchen bench with your kids before school and you can enjoy your coffee with them while they eat their breakfast, instead of you running around drinking your coffee, carrying it from room to room, making sure everything's done, making sure everything's ready. And it's just about sitting and just sort of being sometimes. So I think that's a really important practice that people need to understand. So how does mindfulness benefit you? And I've just got a few listed here. So mindfulness really improves your well-being. So it increases your capacity to support many of the attitudes that contribute to a satisfied life. So what I mean by that is being mindful makes it easier for you to savor the pleasures in your life that occur. It also helps you become more engaged in the activities that you're doing. It creates a greater capacity for you to deal with adverse events, things that might upset you or cause you cognitive dissonance. It's really about focusing here on the now. Many people who practice mindfulness find that they're less likely to be caught up in the anxiety around the worries about the future or the regrets over the past. And they tend to be less preoccupied with the concerns and successes of, or whether they've, their self-esteem, and they seem to be also better in a place where they connect better with others because they're actually being present in the conversation. And if you've ever engaged in a conversation where you've really noticed that the person is listening to you and is present, how did that make you feel at that time? You know, think back to a time where that actually happened, and it's not just a quick passing conversation, but someone really engaged with you and listened and really showed interest. And that's about creating a connection with someone and being present in the now. So the next one we've got is mindfulness improves physical health. So if greater well-being potentially isn't enough of an incentive, scientists have also discovered that mindfulness techniques help improve the physical health in a number of ways. And some of these ways are, it helps with heart disease because it relieves stress, it lowers blood pressure, and it can also help reduce chronic pain, which you can be stressed about. It will help improve sleep. And because it's also a lot of our emotions are held within our abdominal area, if you're one that leans into that belief, you'll find that it helps alleviate those gastrointestinal difficulties, because you're no longer feeling that stress in, you know, your stomach. Often people, you know, who are highly stressed or anxious, you'll hear them say that, oh, I just feel sick about it. So it actually, by doing that, it causes stress on your internal gastrointestinal areas, and it just helps alleviate and make sure that there's no difficulties there. So mindfulness also improves your mental health. So in recent years, psychotherapists have turned to mindfulness meditation as an important element and treatment for a number of problems. And these include depression, substance abuse, which is a big one, eating disorders, even couple conflicts, anxiety disorders, and obsessive compulsive disorders. These are just a list of a few areas that mindfulness has really been making an impact in mental health. So mindfulness is a way of befriending ourselves and our experiences. So here we're up to the tip that I've got for you. So getting started on your own. So there are many types of meditations that primarily involve concentration. And that's the type of meditation that you're after. It's about repeating a phase or you know, a mantra of some description, or it's about focusing on your breathing. And it's about allowing the what we refer to as the parade of thoughts that inevitably just arise and come and go. And these concentration techniques can involve the relaxation response, which is valuable in reducing the body's response to stress, because it's really about just allowing the thoughts to come in, acknowledging those thoughts and letting them go. So that's what we mean by the parade. So it's not about sitting with the thought and meditating on that thought. It's just allowing them to come, flow through, acknowledge, and move on to the next, because you've let that thought go. Okay, so mindfulness builds up the concentration practices. And so what we've got is go with the flow. So by that, I mean, in mindfulness meditation, once you establish that level of concentration, whether it be on the breath, you observe the flow of the inner thoughts. So you just allow the emotions, you allow the body sensations to come and go, whether they're good or bad, without judgment. Okay. The next one is paying attention. You also notice that there could be some external sensations around you. So these are sounds, lights, could be touch, could be the feeling of the clothing that you're wearing. And these make up your moment-to-moment experiences. So the challenge is not to really focus or latch onto a particular area, a particular emotion, or a particular sensation. It's really about getting caught up in thinking, or getting caught up in thinking about the past or the future. It's about watching what comes and goes. It's about paying attention to what the thoughts are that come and go, and discover which mental habits are producing a feeling of well-being or on the contrary, suffering. So it's about paying attention to what your main thoughts are. What is the pattern of thoughts that are coming through as you're sitting there in this go with the flow motion of the parade of thoughts coming through? You need to pay attention to the mental habits that you've created. And once you've done that, you're able to create a bit more awareness around patterns of thoughts that potentially don't serve you, or self-criticism type thoughts, things that you can then move in and work on. Okay. The next one is stay with it, because at times the process may not seem relaxing at all, especially if you have a lot of negative thoughts coming through. But over time, it will help you, and it will help you create a greater happiness and a greater self-awareness as you become more comfortable with the thoughts that come in and the awareness that you can create around them. And that those patterns, those habits, it's all changeable. The brain, every time you experience something, the brain goes through some sort of change. So habits are not something that are ingrained and never changed. Your brain is forever changing. So if you're finding that you're creating these mental habits that are causing you problems, that is something that can be worked on, and it is certainly something that you can change. So again, I am a meditation facilitator. I've also completed my neurochange. So I work a lot with the brain's plasticity. I'm also an NLP practitioner. So I do work with, how the brain creates patterns and how it all works. So if you're really finding that, you're sitting with this one day and that a lot of negative emotions are arising and you really don't know how to deal with them, please do reach out, because I can help you, and there's always links floating around my pages in regards to a 30-minute free clarity call. So please don't be afraid to just do that and have a chat, or just send me a DM and I'll send you a link to book in. It's really important that people deal with these negative thoughts and these negative emotions that come through. And if that's something that you're struggling with, please reach out, if not to me, to someone else that you may know that be able to help you. So next, what we've got here is also, in addition to the formal way of cultivating mindfulness, which we call meditation, being a more thoughtful way, you can also cultivate mindfulness informally by focusing your attention to moment sensations during every day. So this is done by single tasking. I speak a lot about multitasking and how it's not actually good for us. We're in a multitasking situation. We really are dividing our thoughts and we're dividing our focus. So when we're single tasking, what we're doing is we're doing one thing at a time and we're giving it our full direct attention. And by doing that, you're able to, and it doesn't matter whether you're, I've used the example of flossing your teeth, petting your dog, eating an apple. It really doesn't matter what it is, but what you're doing there is being fully present in whatever that task is, and allowing it to just unfold and understand the senses around that. And that's when I spoke about, even if it's just folding the washing earlier, lean into that and, look at the color of your blouse, look into, oh, there's still a stain on that. I might throw that back in the wash, like just even something as simple as that. Or if you are eating an apple, the color of it, the vibrancy, the taste, the flavor, it's about being in that moment and being fully present in that moment. So the next one we've got is practicing acceptance. Above all, mindfulness practice involves accepting whatever arises in your awareness at each moment. So it involves being kind and forgiving towards yourself. And that's really important, because a lot of us, we do go through, we're all human, and we do go through periods in life that are, that can be quite traumatic and quite upsetting. So when you've got a lot of stuff going on in your life that's not necessarily, on a positive level, it's really about making sure that you are kind to yourself and that you are forgiving towards yourself by creating this level of acceptance around your thoughts and around your patterns that you've created, and being able to work through those patterns and change those patterns to more positive thoughts and positive emotions. So gently redirecting, if your mind wanders, as I've spoken about before, into, your daydreaming or your planning or even criticism, notice where it's gone and then gently redirect back to the sensations of the present. So, if you are, I'll go back to the washing, if you are folding your washing and, you're like worrying about the next task, or you've got something happening, an interview or just something happening, and you're really worrying about it and your mind wanders off into thinking about that, just accept it and find yourself and bring yourself back. Okay, bring yourself back to that present moment and redirect so that your sensations are within the present moment and within the now. And most importantly, try again. If you miss your intended meditation session, it's not going to be the end of the world. Just simply, book it in for another time. Start again by practicing the acceptance around experiences that you might have through whether you're doing formal mindfulness or informal mindfulness. It becomes a lot easier to accept what comes your way and the rest of the day. You need to allow yourself to be not so rigid in this, and allow yourself to pivot, because life comes up, and just make sure that you still do your practice, but if it doesn't get done at a particular time, that doesn't mean it can't be done later in the day. So, or if you've organized the formal side of it and you really want to do the meditation, but something's happened and you've missed out, then when you're doing a task during the day, just practice the informal side of the mindfulness. Really lean into the task that you're doing and be mindful of all the sensations around that particular task. So the next one is the summary. We're coming to the end of the webinar. So mindfulness is about living in the now, okay? So it's about being present, and it's about becoming aware and conscious of all the things within us and all the things around us. It's about an intentional act of paying attention and being completely engaged in whatever you're doing at the particular time and whatever is happening around you. So there is more than one way to practice mindfulness. We've discussed a few of those today, but the idea and the goal behind mindfulness is really about achieving a state of being alert. It's about being focused in that moment and paying deliberate attention to your thoughts and sensations. It's about letting go, being kind to yourself, not acting with judgment, and just being able to really focus on that present moment. Okay, being mindful really makes it easier to savor all the pleasures in life. It helps you really engage in your activities, and it helps helps you deal with other areas of your life that may be causing you anxiety or stress or other mental health issues that can arise from burnout and just everyday life. So really focusing here, many people who practice the mindfulness find that they're less likely to be caught up in all these worries, the regrets. They find themselves less preoccupied in concerns around self-esteem, and they find themselves able to really connect with other people on a deeper level. So mindfulness helps you reduce things like your stress, which in turn, has a ripple effect into heart disease and blood pressure, chronic pain, improvement of sleep, alleviating all your gastrointestinal difficulties, all these things. Stress is one of the biggest causes of disease in the world, and it really does have a ripple effect into every other aspect of your life and affects you on a physiological level. So if you do choose to do mindfulness meditation, just remember important in part of that is remember as you're going through the meditation to just allow the flow of the thoughts. Don't sit with the thoughts too long. Just allow them, acknowledge them, understand them, get to know them, and pay attention to the habits of thoughts that you've potentially created that you didn't have awareness around, and really stay with it, because sometimes it's not going to be easy and it's not going to be comfortable, but the practice will pay off. Okay, so mindfulness again here will help with all sorts of number of treating of a number of problems, anything from depression through to couples conflicts, obsessive compulsive disorder, and so on, eating disorders. There's many, many more that mindfulness meditation can help with, because it really creates an awareness around the present moment. It allows you to lean into the emotions and the feelings that you're creating around the particular moment that you might be having, cognitive dissonance around, which is an adverse effect, of a physiological adverse effect. It allows you to understand them. And once you have that awareness and that understanding, that is the first step for change. So, this really can be the backbone for a lot of treatments and a lot of health disorders. So here we are at the end of today's webinar. Today's webinar was on what is mindfulness and why is it important. For those who didn't make it today, you will receive a copy of this in your email box. Thank you for those who watched this live. It was a pleasure to have you. If you would like to check my podcast out, I am with Anchor. My podcast is Empowering Ordinary Women. If you know of any ladies who would like to join the Organisational Secrets for Empowered Women who you think would benefit from the information here, please pass along the link, invite them along, and see if they are interested. You can also find me on LinkedIn and YouTube. I upload these to YouTube periodically, so you will also find some information there too. There's also some meditations, some mini meditations to help if anxiety is an issue. There's a couple of things that can help you there. So check out the YouTube channel. There's a few meditations and relaxation things there for you to check out. As I have mentioned, please don't be afraid to reach out if this is something that you want to explore on a deeper level. I am qualified to be able to help you with this, so please do reach out, if not to me, to somebody else, and get yourself in the motion of being able to create mindfulness in your own life. So next week's webinar, next week being Friday the 8th of April, the webinar is going to be on what does it mean to be emotionally intelligent. And some of the information that I've talked about this week and in previous weeks around purpose, beliefs, and those sorts of things, they will overlap a little bit into what it means to be emotionally intelligent. I hope you can join me. I'm really enjoying these subjects at the moment. I'm quite passionate about them. So I look forward to having you along. Webinars are live, 9 a.m. Follow the links to register. You'll find them in this page or on my profile. So again, thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next week. This is Jodie Siemens from Taking Perspective.